Well, welcome to Focus today. I'm delighted to have in the studio with us a very special guest. Diane Kosmatka is with us. She's an RN and the Community Liaison for Providence Home Care Services. And we're here to talk to her about a series that's coming back that you need to take advantage of. It's called Conversations About Dying and Living Well Until It Happens. Diane, I know that this was a huge success in the last couple of years. And
it has been.
You're getting ready to do again. It's the Smullen Center.
Yes.
And starts tomorrow night. Mm-hmm. And tell
Actually,
us about
tomorrow afternoon.
Tomorrow afternoon.
Yes.
Tell us about the series.
So the series, it's kind of a scary name because it entitles Conversations About Dying, and people are like, that's not about me. I don't need to attend that. But actually, the subtitle is Living Well Until It Happens.
Yeah.
And as we all know, 100% of us are going to die.
Yeah.
To get out of here, you know?
Yeah.
Only a couple didn't, so.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's... it captures just lots of great information about dying, about preparing for the inevitable. Those of us as baby boomers want to know about those decisions that are facing us coming up, and for people, elderly people who are like coming up to that pretty quick.
Well, you know what's so interesting about this? We avoid this topic, and yet we do have in the back of our minds and in our hearts desires that we want to have take place as we get close to that time. And there's a statistic here you gave me. It says 70% of those who require an end-of-life decision lack decision-making capacity.
Absolutely.
That's unbelievable.
Absolutely. It hits us like a freight train. We think someday I'll deal with that. But you'll end up in the hospital emergency room or ICU where they're going, should we intubate?
Yeah.
Or I've heard many people who have been faced with a conversation about, do you want a tube for your mom? Did you talk about that? And it's like, I don't know, anybody talk to mom about that?
Yeah.
So when those conversations come up, you have a few minutes to decide on those really critical life decisions. And if you haven't had that prior decision documented, number one, who's going to speak for you?
Right.
That's a huge one, and that's why we really push having people discuss and fill out their advance directive, because that designates a surrogate, someone who's going to speak for you. If you're married, usually your wife does. Yeah. Your kids, if you don't have a partner or a spouse, for your parents. If one has dementia and that hasn't been dealt with, who then, as a child, is going to speak for mom or dad?
Now, so part of this is getting this directive in place.
Yes.
And you walk people through that?
Yes, we do. In the whole series, there's 6 different lectures starting this Thursday. And by the way, they're given twice.
Okay.
In the afternoon, 2 to 3:30.
Okay.
For people that want to drive during the day.
Yeah.
In the evening, for people that work possibly, or whoever just likes to do evening events, 7 to 8:30. So at the Smullen for 6 different series talks. Some are panels, some are Shakespearean actors that are going to act out this type of scenario and dialogues. And then the final one on the 4th of April, we are going to have a time where people can fill out their advance directive. They will have time with a facilitator that's been trained, and they can help them formulate and fill this out.
All right. Now, what do they do if they want to attend?
Show up.
Okay.
Absolutely show up. There's no RSVP. Smullen Center is large enough that we can handle the capacity. As you mentioned, last year we had 1,800 that showed up and attended the different series.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Now, some of these things are so interesting because you're going to do one list that says here where you might be near to the end of your life. What are the options?
Yeah. Where are you going to go? Where are you going to be? 70% of people say, I want to die at home. I want to die at home, but only 30% of individuals do die at home. Other alternatives would be a hospital for real critical care, a nursing home, foster home. But yeah, 30% say they want to die at home. So if you haven't planned around that, then it's kind of a...
what about the actual medical directives themselves? You know, do you go through that? I mean,
yes.
What you want, what you don't want. Do you want to be feeding tubes, not feeding tubes? I mean, all of those things.
Yes, we have lots of excellent information. We don't decide for you, of course. We help guide you through the organ advance directive, and also just discussion about why do you do an advance directive, or why would you do an organ pulsed form? So it educates people on the differences between those two, but not every talk is about that. Every talk is different, and it's a different venue discussing different needs for people living well until death occurs.
What happens when you don't do this? If you don't have a directive, things get pretty complicated, don't they?
It does, and the default in the hospital is everything gets done. You get it all. You get intubation, cardiac compression, you get everything. Keep in mind, the PULSed advanced directive, it says when you can't speak for yourself. So when would that happen? You might have a massive stroke, you might be in a terrible car accident, you might have some sudden event that would render you the inability to speak. Maybe your heart stops.
Right.
So it's different if I'm 55 versus 95.
Right.
So those conversations need to begin, but then they can be built upon and changed. So it's something we need to attend to on a regular basis as our health needs change.
Now, you also walk people through the paperwork, because I know that it should be at the hospital, and the big bright pink slip on the refrigerator.
Yeah, the PULSed form. Right.
Yeah.
And that needs to be in your home and ready to go for those that are frail, elderly, and have serious medical concerns that would render that. I mean, you and Peggy don't have to have one on your refrigerator.
Oh, okay.
Nice. You can have it. You can have the grandkids on the refrigerator.
Yeah.
But when you're elderly and you have very serious disease, you do need to have that pulse, because that's what the EMTs are going to look for. They'll go right to your refrigerator. Do you have one? And if you don't have it, or if they can't find it, some people say, well, it was there, but they didn't get it.
Yeah.
If you have that registered with the PULSed registry up in Portland, then you're on the registry. They'll call and say, do you have Joe Schmo? Yeah, he's here, and this is what his wishes are.
Okay, and I think we need to be clear here. This has nothing to do with estate planning, but this
Yes.
does get inserted into those documents, especially if you have a medical directive, which is very, very important. And these are tough decisions. You know, when I went through ours and I was looking at it, I thought, you know, you always talk about these things, but now you got to put the check in the box, you know, and that's kind of tough.
But you know, the nice thing is you can always change your mind.
Yeah.
And so it's not binding. You can change your mind, and we expect people to change their wishes as life goes on. If mom has early dementia, that might be more than advanced dementia.
Your work also with hospice is just wonderful. I mean, I can't say enough about that work and what Providence provides in hospice care. It's just outstanding. And I think one of the things that people are concerned about is the dignity at that time of death and even pain.
Yes.
You're very much in control of those things, aren't you?
Absolutely, absolutely. We are, I say we're very aggressive as nurses, as clinicians, to attend to the ever-changing needs of the individual. Unfortunately, with hospices these days around the country, we're getting people maybe the last week instead of the last 6 months. So there's that time of planning is really compressed into a few days. So if we can get in earlier, that is our huge thrust for hospice. But no problem dealing with pain. We've got lots of great medications. We direct the care through their own physician and our medical director. We can rapidly change the needs as their care needs change. So that's really important. But you know, some of the parts that people forget is there's a lot of planning. If we get a person on hospice, they haven't made funeral plans, the kids are planning to come in Christmas, and this is the fall, and why don't they come now? We can guide the family for the needs.
Yeah.
And let them know. People call us angels, and I always kind of laugh. It's like, I'm not an angel. Yeah. But you know, when someone's had hospice, they are just jaw dropped. They're like, I cannot believe what you guys have just done. And they couldn't have done it alone. So you need to have that person on your team to help guide, because we've been there a million times.
So often I have come in behind you as a minister. I've come in behind you, and after the death has occurred, to work with the family. And they just cannot say enough about what hospice care had done to prepare them for that time.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Listen, power of attorney, is that part of these directives?
Yes.
Or is that a legal document outside of these directives?
There's a couple of power of attorney. There's a durable power of attorney, and that would be for financial, and power of attorney for health care.
Okay.
So your health care representative, POA, they'll say, who's your POA? And it's like, well, these days, the hospitals want to see that on a document if someone is going to be intervening and trying to make decisions. It's not uncommon to have a family in conflict, and so different members will be fighting. So we want to see the document. Who has signed on for this? Where do we see that signature? So that person who's trying to impart their push into the medical changes that are occurring in the hospital, and quickly, I might add, we want to see that so we know they are really legitimately the power of attorney for health care.
Well, I just want to say to all of you listening and watching, this is a stewardship issue, especially as believers. I think this is a stewardship issue. I don't care how old you are or how young you are. You need to attend these classes. Are free, these seminars, and then especially the last one where they actually walk you through the paperwork. And again, it's going to be at the Smullen Center. Starts on Thursday. You'll have 2 to 3:30 in the afternoon, and then the evenings from 7 to 8:30. And they don't need to do anything, just show up.
Nope. And if they want one of these, Perry, that we have that shows, well, you have right there, what the different talks are about. Can I just review them quickly?
Yeah.
Dr. Michael Rabo is Thursday speaker. He is phenomenal. He's from UCSF in California. I had the pleasure of hearing him speak in the fall. Unbelievable. Yeah. Just jaw drop. He was so good. People really need to attend that one. The second one, which I think is ever more important, is 4 doctors are talking about the end-stage disease trajectory of heart disease, dementia, pulmonary, and oncology, cancer. So how do people die with these different diseases? Third, where do you want to be? Where will your choice be? What are my options for where I am as I die? Taking care of business, an attorney, a CPA, a geriatric care manager, and a funeral home director will be talking about those issues. Okay. And then scenes from the end of life are Shakespeare actors that are going to depict a play for people that have had the discussion and a play for people that haven't had and that are hit by the freight train, and it's like, oh my gosh. So they'll depict that. 3 Shakespeare actors. And then families telling their stories. I'll be moderating families say, what happened? How did it go for you? And they'll tell their story about, we're going to try to get families who have had a good discussion and are well planned, and those that it was not well planned and possibly chaos.
And then the last one is the advanced care planning.
Exactly. Yes.
All right. Again, Thursday starts Thursday, and that's on the February 7th, Smullen Center. You're welcome to be there anytime. It starts at 2 o'clock, and then the evening one is at 7 o'clock. Thanks, Diane.
Thanks, Perry.